Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Denmark once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, a good few different styles, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they are very solid all round. But one of the really interesting things about these guys is that they like to brew unusual and lesser known beer styles, and their interpretations of these always tend to be pretty damn good in my experience. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases from what I understand. It's a style that I know these guys can do very well, and also a sub-style that I very much enjoy, and it's a reimagining of one of their more well-acclaimed beers, I guess we could say as well, and it's a little bit souped up. They've changed the recipe a little bit, and it is supposed to be very, very nice. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Ålborg on Jylland, right in the north of the peninsula, and Jylland of course is the mainland part of Denmark, as I would call it, the part that's attached to Germany. But we're going to go then to Bad Seed Brewing once again, and this particular beer is called Goodnight Mekong. It comes in at 12.5% ABV, and this one is an Imperial coffee stout. So from what I understand, this beer is a kind of reimagining of the recipe that they used for Good Morning Vietnam, one of their really acclaimed beers. We reviewed one of the barrel-aged versions of that on the channel a couple of years ago, if memory serves me correctly, but I don't think I've tried the original, but the one I tried was really damn good actually. But yeah, they've upped the recipe a little bit, amped it up and things, and this is supposed to be very, very good. So two shout outs I want to make in this video. The first would be to Jessica and Nicolina of Beer Hive Amar. That's where this beer was bought, and that's where most of the Danish beers that I review on the channel come from. Great little selection there, and as always I'll put the link to their Facebook and Instagram page in the video description below, so do make sure you follow them. That will keep you quite well up to date on what's going on and being released in the Danish beer scene. But I also want to give a shout out to Peter Jensen, who is the man behind Master of Hop. It's a very well known YouTube channel, lovely guy. I've met up with him a few times in person. He is one of the brewers at Bad Seed Brewing these days, so a big shout out to him, and hopefully I can meet up with him at some point in the future. I should go up to Ålborg. He actually invited me up to Ålborg, and I've just never had time to do it, so we'll maybe need to see about doing that and going and having a look at this brewery actually. But yeah, I'll put the link to Master of Hoppets in the video description for you below as well. But always cool to review the beers that Peter is involved in brewing. But let's crack on with this one in any case and see what it's all about. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Bad Seed Brewing before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated. Remember, you can also go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. Just go in there, use the search bar, put your hometown, state, county, whatever you like in there. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Danish playlist along with many other things. And of course you can check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well. But there are some very good beers in Denmark these days. And Denmark is one of the most reviewed countries here on Rampant Lion Reviews as well. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a little bit about Bad Seed Brewing once again. So, Bad Seed Brewing, as I've told you before, were founded back in 2015 by Frederick Hector Schmidt. So he had been working in a beer store in Ålborg called Ølkonsortiet, and in this time he became very good friends with a guy who homebrewed, and he began to join in with them and learn more and more about actually brewing beer for himself. But he continued to experiment on his own, and together they actually joined a homebrewing community, and when he moved to Copenhagen he took an internship at Nørrebro Bryghus and then worked for a few other breweries before starting up Bad Seed Brewing for himself. So he started brewing at Ølkollektivet, which of course was home to the likes of Dry and Bitter Brewing, Gamma Brewing, and the other one's going out of my head, Ulsnegeren. Those guys were based up there as well, so he was brewing a few of these beers up there, and he was doing this as a kind of phantom gypsy brewery, whatever you want to call it. And the first beer that he released was called Lazarus IPA, and I think we reviewed that on the channel a wee while ago actually. But during this time when he was getting Bad Seed up and running, he was also working as a bar manager for Brewers Inc. at the in Copenhagen. But these days they've got their own brewery close to Ålborg in Denmark, like I said, on the northern part of the Jylland Peninsula, and they bought some equipment from Abeltoft Brewery, Abeltoft Gård Brewery. They're from quite close to Aarhus, if I remember correctly, to get things started. They did have a few hiccups in the early stages though. The equipment apparently fell off a truck and they had to repair it and stuff like this, but thankfully they got the brewery up and running, and everything has been going well since, from what I understand. But the new brewery began production in October of 2018, and over the last few years they've continued to expand the brewing capacity. They've been trying to brew lots of different styles, from what I've mentioned as well, and they've got quite an interesting barrel programme that you should keep an eye on too. But as of May 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 120 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And like I say, one of the most interesting things about Bad Seed Brewing is that they brew lots of really random stuff. I mean, they've been brewing alt beers recently. They've been doing a few interesting West Coast IPAs, looking at modern takes and old school takes on the style. And I think they released an alt beer fairly recently, which isn't something that many breweries do either. So yeah, like I say, a very, very experimental brewery doing lots of different styles, and one that I would recommend that you check out if you find yourself interested in Danish craft beer. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Bad Seed Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and actually have a little look at this beer itself. I'll just let you have a wee look at the can on this one before we open it up. Yeah, it does look pretty nice, I have to say. Nearly dropping it there, which would not be a good thing. But yeah, you can see the kind of cockerel, peacock, or whatever that is. I'm not into my ornithology all that much. I'm not well updated on the different kinds of birds and things. But yeah, the artwork on this one is really nice. You can see on the back there, Good Night Mekong, and also the Bad Seed Brewing symbol. Plain silver top on the can there. Incidentally, this is a 330ml can. If I remember correctly, this beer cost me in the region of 60 Danish kroner, so that's about 90 Swedish, about €9, £8 sterling, somewhere in the region of like $10 American, something like that. But as we said, it's a 12.5% Imperial coffee stout, this one Vietnamese coffee. It's got a little bit on the back about the beer as well. So it says, Good Night Mekong is the bigger brother to our famous Good Morning Vietnam. A bigger, bolder version and with more of everything. We use the same recipe but make a much stronger base beer that we boil for 5 hours to increase the intensity and complexity of the beer. Brewed with lactose for authentic Vietnamese coffee to mimic Ca Sa Phu Soa De, Vietnamese iced coffee. Probably pronounced that horribly, I apologise. But Good Morning Mekong is an intense roasted aroma with notes of coffee, vanilla, caramel and dark chocolate, and a flavour with great balance between sweetness and bitterness. But yeah, it says it also contains a little bit of rye malt in here as well, which should be quite interesting. But yeah, like I said, the barrel-aged version of the Good Morning Vietnam that we tried a few years ago was absolutely lovely, so I do have good confidence that this beer will be pretty nice. But you can see, when you hold this can, you can feel the density of this thing as well, so this will be pretty impressive. Let's get it open though and have a little look at it. The Goodnight Mekong, 12.5% ABV Imperial Coffee Stout from Bad Seed Brewing, just outside of Ålborg in Denmark. So let's do this. This does look very nice. Oh, that does look very, very good. So, as I've said to you on the channel many times before, I love Imperial coffee stouts. Coffee beans are one of my favourite adjuncts that you can put in beer because they are just as diverse as hops. You know, different types of bean, different soil profiles, water profiles, all these kind of things. Coffee beans are absolutely awesome to put in beers. But anyway, you can see this beer is poured pretty much as you would expect of any Imperial Stout. The head is retaining quite well on this one, but you can see that the beer poured with about a half finger to a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of medium to dark kind of tan head there. The bubbles on this one are kind of small to medium in size. I'll just let you have a little look at that on the camera there, but you can see the head on this beer is very, very nice. But lovely, big, dark, ebony rosewood colour to this one, which is exactly, again, what you would expect of an Imperial Stout. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort bowl is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrelation you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect the colour of it as well. But yeah, when it comes to black beers such as stouts, it's very, very difficult to change the colour of these beers with barrel aging or adjuncts. But no doubt the presence of the coffee bean in this one will have an effect on the actual darkness of it. If we shine the light through this beer, you can see it's got a little bit of a kind of Pepsi or cola coloured edge to it. But yeah, overall it does look pretty much as you would expect of the style. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation, one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the palette there, or the side of the glass there. But yeah, you can see the head on this one is starting to fade away. You've just got a nice kind of thin foamy layer kind of covering over everything underneath that. But yeah, it looks very nice, I have to say, and nothing surprising about this one, I should say, when you consider what style it is. One or two little bits of sediment in the bottom of the glass there, but yeah, it looks as you would expect from an Imperial coffee stout. So yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma of this one and just see what it's all about. I'm very, very curious about this. Oh yeah, this beer is an absolute monster. But you know, remembering that Good Morning Vietnam barrel-aged version that we had, I'm really not surprised. But I'm just going to say straight away, beautiful, beautiful beer, this one, in terms of its aroma. So, one of the things, as I say, to remember about coffee beans is that, yeah, you've got different types of bean. These can be grown in different parts of the world. One of the most important things to consider with coffee beans, apparently, is the mazel, the metres above sea level at which the coffee is grown. Apparently, at the higher altitudes, you get the more fruity and aromatic flavours coming out of these things. And yeah, you know, Indonesia, Ethiopia, Colombia, to name but a few. Brazil has also some really nice coffee varieties as well. These countries are all very, very well known for having, you know, a multitude of different types of coffee beans that you can have a look at. But yeah, the aroma of this beer is just absolutely lovely. It's like a really just smooth coffee character that you get out of this one. It's absolutely lovely, I have to say. So yeah, the way this beer goes together is very, very nice. Yeah, I do like how this goes together. It gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah. So on the aroma then, where do we start with this one? It gives you everything that you would want. You've got the sweetness of the coffee, you've got a bit of malty character to the beer as well, a little bit of fruitiness, and also a wee bit of hoppiness. We have to remember with this beer, this is not a barrel-aged version as the last one was. This is a whole, like basically a raw Imperial coffee stout, if we can call it that. But let's break the aroma down and just describe it for you a bit more in depth, as I always like to do. So, yeah, backbone of this beer. Yeah, you've got a lovely little bit of that kind of roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust in this one. So yeah, lovely roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust in there. That forms the backbone of the beer. Within that, you've got a little bit of woodiness for sure, a little bit of a, how would we say, yeah, you've got a little bit of the woodiness in there. There's a little tiny touch of an almost vanilla type quality to this one too, actually. And I guess that's probably going to come from the lactose to an extent. But, yeah. But yeah, the way this goes together is really, really nice actually. So yeah, as I say, you've got that kind of well-fired, roasty, toasty, black, almost black backbone to this beer. A little bit of woodiness in there, little touch of vanilla. Then on top of that, you start to get the more bready characteristics out of the beer. So some lovely kind of rye bready notes for sure. You get a lovely kind of sweet rye bready character out of this one, almost slightly caramelized in a sense. And then above that, you start to get a wholemeal brown bread, and then you've also got a nice, you get a wholemeal kind of brown bready character out of it, and then you start to get a little bit of a more kind of cakey note out of this one. So yeah, you've got a layer in this beer that's kind of like, it's sort of like a chocolate muffin, but it's also a little bit more along the lines of as I say, it's like a kind of chocolate muffin, but you've also got a little bit of like a more thick, dense brownie type character to this one as well. Goes together really interestingly, I have to say. I do like how that goes together in this one. But yeah, on top of that kind of the sort of muffiny type character you get with this one, it's like a chocolate muffin, but above that you do start to get some of the kind of chocolatey character. This one, the chocolate is quite a dry chocolate, so lovely kind of smooth milky characters in there, but also a little bit of a more you've got a little bit of this kind of 40% cocoa chocolatey character to this one, but then also a more kind of dry 60-70% cocoa chocolate as well. But above that, there's definitely some kind of brown sugars in there, a nice kind of leathery brown sugary character, also a little bit of a sweet caramel. Leathery brown sugar. As we say, it's had a 5-hour wort boiling. As we always say, the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get these big smooth notes out of it. So yeah, leathery brown sugar in there, a little bit of treacle molasses, a little bit of a toasty brown sugar, and also the sweet kind of caramelly notes as well, like I said. But other than that, you've got the coffee beans sitting underneath everything, giving you another layer of complexity to the beer. So for me, the coffee bean notes that you get out of this one, they do have a little bit of an almost like cherry, blackberry type note coming out of them. There's a bit of a smooth earthiness in there as well. Lots of aromaticity, which I find quite, lots of aromaticity, which I find really interesting. So big aromatic notes, good little bit of kind of cherry or blackberry character as well. Smooth earthiness underneath, and quite a wee bit of floral aromaticity too, as I've said. And that's only the coffee beans we're talking about there. So the coffee beans give you a lot of the aromaticity in the top of the nose with this beer for sure. On the hoppy side of things then, and remember, Imperial Stouts are not the most hop forward styles of beer, but they will give you a good little bit of character actually. But yeah, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness to this one, a little bit of herbal character too. You could obviously age this beer a little bit and let it sit and kind of mellow out if you really wanted to. But at this point in time, does it say when this was canned? It says it's best by October 2027, so, but it doesn't have a canned on date, so I don't know exactly how old this one is, but you could obviously let it sit and the hoppy character would drop out. But as it stands, it still has a little bit of floral character, also a wee bit of grassiness and things, and the way that goes together is quite nice. So yeah, a good little bit of green component to this beer as well. The way that goes together is nice for sure. On the fruity side of things as well then, so for me, you've got a nice little bit of a sharper raisiny note to this one, definitely some juicy plums, a lot of figgy character, blackberries, blackcurrant, all the usual things that you would kind of expect of a big Imperial Stout like this. But the aroma of this one is pretty damn good, I have to say. Just take a little bit of time, ponder it over, and enjoy it. But I think this is going to be a beast. But I think it's about time we try this one. So this is the Goodnight Mekong, a 12.5% Imperial Coffee Stout, a reimagining, a souped up version, if you want to call it that, of the original Good Morning Vietnam. This one comes to you once again from Bad Seed Brewing. just outside of Ålborg on Jylland in Denmark. Big shout out, of course, to Peter from Master of Opits. Slanje, skål, cheers. Let's do this. Yeah. That is pretty damn good, I have to say. Yeah, this beer certainly does not disappoint. It's interesting for me because it talks about iced coffee, and I've said this in reviews before. I do not drink coffee. You know, for me, the coffee beans are one of my favourite adjuncts that you can put in beer, just because of how complex they are. But I actually don't drink coffee at all outside of that. But this beer, for me, they talk about it being based on iced coffee, and I would have thought iced coffee would be a little bit more kind of milky and smooth and stuff like this. And I kind of got that impression from the aroma. But this is more, this beer has a lot more kind of robustness to it. It's like a robust roasty coffee stout, this one. But it's lovely. Another awesome beer from Bad Seed. And these guys, for me, I haven't had too many of their IPAs, but I will admit that I've been a bit more impressed by the darker and stronger, more malty side of things from Bad Seed than I have the more hoppy side. But I do admit as well, I need to explore that a little bit more. I'd love to try some of these West Coast IPAs they've been putting out, but I just haven't seen them. But yeah, this is really good. This is really good. I mean, if you enjoy a good Imperial Stout, regardless of what kind, you will enjoy this one. Gives you everything you want. You've got a bit of smoothness in there, a bit of roastiness, lovely bit of sweetness in the aftertaste, juicy, wet, fruity characters, and then you can feel there's a good little bit of hoppy character too. So yeah, the way that everything goes together in this beer is really very nice. Yeah, it's beautiful stuff, this one, but we'll break it down as we always do. Middle third of your palate then. The base of this beer, the backbone is of course that roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust. That's absolutely the backbone of the beer. As you move further forward on that, middle third of your palate, you can feel there's a little touch of woodiness toward the front. There's a wee bit of like an almost vanilla type quality in there as well. So yeah. But yeah, the way this goes together is really nice. So above the roasty, well-fired layer with the wee bit of wood and the wee bit of vanilla, then you start to get the more bready character out of this one. So you can feel there's like a slightly dry, but still quite dense, rye bready layer in there, and that comes together really nicely. So yeah, a nice kind of rye bready layer coming out of this one. Above that rye bready layer, you get a little bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bready layer, and then you start to get like a more kind of cakey, browny type layer above that. So it's a mix of a kind of like spongy, chocolatey, caramelly, brown, sugary type cake out of this one, but you've also got that chocolatey, browny type quality coming out of it as well. And yeah, the way that goes together is really very nice. It's, yeah, the layers that you get in this beer are really interesting, very rich actually. And and the coffee beans are actually coming out more in the back third of the palate, so we'll come to that a wee bit later on. Like I say, above the kind of cakey layer that you have in this one, above the cakey layer, you have at the back of that middle third of your palate, you've got a really roasty, toasty, kind of well-fired chocolate out of this one. It's got the sort of 80-90% cocoa chocolate that comes out of this one. And yeah, so you can feel that at the back of that middle third of your palate, but then as you come further forward, you get more of as you come further forward, you get more. The chocolate kind of gradually mellows out. As I've said in many videos before, more roasty and bitter flavours come out further back on the palate, sweeter flavours come out further forward. So at the back of that middle third of your palate, you've got a more 80-90% cocoa chocolate in there. But then as you move further forward, you can feel the chocolate gradually mellows out. So from 80-90% cocoa chocolate, as you move further and further forward, you get a more milky chocolate coming out of this one. So yeah, you can feel that 80-90% cocoa chocolate. Then as you move further forward, it just mellows out, and probably as you reach the very front of that middle third of your palate, you're getting a sort of 60% cocoa chocolate. So the chocolatey character on this one is predominantly dark chocolate, definitely. Above that, you start to get the brown sugary layers. You can feel, pardon me, you've got a more leathery brown sugary layer from the slightly longer wort boil that this beer has. Although 5 hours isn't the longest I've heard of for sure, but then yeah, so you've got that leathery kind of brown sugary layer in there. Above that, you have more of a above that you're getting a little bit more of a kind of toasty brown sugar. Then you start to get a sweet caramel layer, and then in the dead centre of your palate with this one, you get that highly caramelised treacle molasses. I think that covers what we need to say about the middle third of your palate in this one. So yeah, I like that about this beer for sure. So yeah, the way that this goes together in the middle third of the palate is really nice, and what you'll get further into the aftertaste, you can feel the dry kind of roasty, toasty bread crust underneath, the sweetness in the middle, and then the real brown sugary sweetness on top. But let's look at the back third of the palate with this beer then. So the back third of the palate, you can feel the border region between middle and back third of your palate. You get the kind of bready build up in there. That's where a lot of the coffee bean comes out. And for me, the coffee bean, like I said, it's actually got quite a dry, roasty, earthy character to it. The earthiness is a bit more prominent in the flavour than it is in the aroma. But then above that, on that, you also get quite a bit of aromatic character, and you've also got some kind of raisiny or plummy notes coming out of the coffee too. So you can feel that in this one, but the coffee does give you a bit of dryness into the aftertaste. The back third of the palate, though, has similar layers to the middle third. So you get the roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust, although it's a bit drier, of course. You get the kind of rye bready layer there, which feels a little bit lighter and more kind of tall and airy in a sense. You get the brown bready layer as well, and you get some of the kind of cakey muffin. It's more like a muffiny character, I would say, a chocolate muffin type character sitting on the top of that back third of the palate, and then some of the coffee beans, some of the more roasty, dry, earthy coffee bean flavours just creep over the top of that. And above everything else on that back third of the palate, you've got the more yeasty characters coming out of the beer. So within that yeasty character, it's a little bit of a more kind of brown bready, farmhousey type note that's coming out of that. But definitely the back third of your palate in this beer is a lot taller, and then as you move further forward, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. And I think that is everything we really need to say about the yeasty, coffee and malty side of this beer. I think that summarises it quite nicely. This beer is one of these ones where it's all about the balance and how everything comes out, and it's got a really nice balance between dryness, sweetness, and then the coffee in this one. It's a beautiful beer, this. Certainly would not hesitate to drink it again, but this beer is definitely a more kind of sipper and enjoy. This is more like a kind of dessert beer, this one, rather than anything else, of course. But let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. So, back corners of the palate. me. This beer, like I say, Imperial Stout's not the most hoppy forward, the most hop forward style as a beer, and you could of course age this a little bit longer, but as it stands when I'm drinking this one, May 2023, I think this was released like a month or two ago actually. This beer, it still has a bit of its hoppy character. In the back corners of the palate you do get a substantial little bit of earthiness in there, which is nice, but as you move further forward you get a little touch of a herbal character as well, and as you push toward the kind of front corners of the palate you get a little bit of a more floral aromatic sort of thing out of this one. The floral aromaticity that you get out of this beer, I think, is really quite nice actually, but the earthiness is quite prominent. That really builds the further into the aftertaste you go, and it builds a good bridge with the kind of coffee characters that you're getting in this beer too. But round the front curve of the tongue, definitely a little bit of a lighter grassiness, and the grassy character is quite oily in that regard too. Yeah, I like this one, definitely. Yeah, on the fruit, I think we can, that's everything we need to say about the green component of this beer. We can go on and have a little look to round off the tasting on the front third of your palate. So the border region between front third and middle third of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of a kind of brown bready build up in this one. Yeah, so kind of, you've got the brown bread in there, you've got the rye bread, but you've also got a little bit of a kind of muffiny, chocolatey, cakey type thing. But the base of that front third of the palate, you've got the roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust, the sweeter rye bread on top of it, then the more kind of oily chocolate cake, and then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at these fruity side of things then. So, the fruity side of this beer is really interesting too, because it's a whole mix of things going on. At the back of that front third of the palate, you get the more kind of, you get a bit of a sharper raisin on top, you get quite a little bit of juicy, kind of plummy and almost slightly cherry-ish character underneath that, and then and that sits on the back of that front third of your palate, as I say. But then as you move further forward, you start to get some really juicy figgy character out of the beer. And then in the front half of that front third of your palate, there's a bit of blackcurrant there, but it's mainly blackberry. The fruity characters in this one, as I say, it's raisin, plum, fig, blackberry. It's quite straightforward, but it's really, could we say that it's quite, it's not juicy, but the fruit flavours have quite a little bit of pungency to them. That's absolutely fair to say. Yeah. Yeah, this is really nice actually. It's the fruity character you get out of this one, and the whole balance that this beer has is just really nicely done. I mean, as I say, you've got roastiness in the malt base. Well, probably at this point we should move on to the mouthfeel. I think we covered everything we need to say about the flavour. This is just one of these beers though, to make a general statement, this beer is just really nicely balanced in everything that it does. Very, very good Imperial coffee stout. This is a style I very much enjoy, a sub-style that I really, really enjoy, and this is definitely worth trying if you get the chance. It's one of the more dry and toasty examples of this sub-style, I would say, as well. But yeah, let's just round it off with the mouthfeel then. This is one of these beers that's all about the balance. But yeah, for me, top end to mid-body, bottom end to full-bodied in terms of its mouthfeel. Carbonation is very, very smooth. It has a bit of silkiness to it, but this is actually a very dry and roasty and bitter beer for sure. The malt base, as we said, roastiness underneath, a bit of smoothness and sweetness in the middle, then a little bit more sweetness on top. You do get quite a bit of bitterness in this beer at this point in time from the hoppy side of it, so you've got quite a bit of earthiness from the hoppy character in the beer. But then you've also got that nice big fruitiness coming out of it too. So yeah, the fruitiness for me is quite sharp and quite, I don't know if juicy is the right word, but quite pungent, I would say too. But beautiful, beautiful Imperial coffee stout, this one. And just, you know, it's a sipper, this beer. This is one that you get, you enjoy the can. Maybe you can share it with a friend if you just want a little taste. But beautiful, beautiful beer. And this could potentially be the best one that I've had from Bad Seed Brewing so far. I think the last beer we reviewed was the Adam beer, or Batch 100, whatever it was called. I forget the name of that one, but that was also very nicely done. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the Goodnight Mekong, a 12.5% Imperial coffee stout, a reimagining of the Good Morning Vietnam from Bad Seed Brewing, just outside of Ålborg on Jylland in Denmark. Really enjoyed this beer, so it gets a big thumbs up from me. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Bad Seed Brewing as well. Massive shout out, of course, to Jessica and Nicolina of Beer Hive and Hop House in Amar in Copenhagen, and of course to Peter of Peter, the master of hop. It's a bit of a legend of BeerTube as well. So yeah, go and check out all of these guys. Thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Bad Seed's social media, and I will see you guys in the next one. An awesome Imperial coffee stout. It's a style I very much enjoy, and I have enjoyed this one for you. This is just, it's one of these beers where all the flavours just balance out, and it's just a very enjoyable drinking experience, and you cannot ask for much more than that these days. But until the next time, Slange, Scott, cheers, see you guys in the next review. This was Goodnight Mekong from Bad Seed Brewing outside of Ålborg on Jylland in Denmark.